weirdest thing. I was like, in this industry, everybody I meet, we have so many things in common, and it's not things I have in common normally with people. And I'm like, what's drawing us all to this industry? Like something's drawing us into this kind of metaphysical space.
Welcome to
Maybe.
the Spatial Creator Cast. Today I'm talking with the infamous, the one and only Piper ZY. Piper, it's so great to talk with you. Thank you for joining me. Let's just get started. I always love to hear artists talk about their work in their own words. So rather than me try to mistranslate something, can you just start us off by introducing your work and your vision as a spatial creator?
Always just like really interested in trying to find the medium that would allow me to make what I wanted. I love things like the Fifth Element. And for a long time, I thought that would be like music videos because I'm like, okay, this is a little snapshot into this futuristic world. It's within my production abilities, like to make something shorter versus I'm going to make a movie. I can make this kind of amateur music videos. I was playing with futuristic concepts, digital fashion film, just amateur things. Then I had a project where I was like, I wish I could track a face. I looked up free face tracking software and the filter software came up. That night, I spent so many hours in the software, like, wow, this is opening up a whole new world of being able to track things. So from there, my spatial work really was centered around the tracking. I got interested in the target tracking and just how can I add things to my accessories because it just connected up what I was doing frame by frame. I was doing Adobe frame by frame. If I wanted the glowing orb on my outfit, it was one frame at a time. And tracking made it so much faster. From there, I was like, okay, this is working. I think this is very cool, but I had no audience and I really wanted people to see it. So I committed then. I'm like, I'm going to do 100 days of this and people are going to see it no matter what. Some luck overlapped with that was the time where TikTok was still growing and they wanted things to be hitting the For You page a lot. I just made 100 days and that kind of grew my platform. That's how it
Amazing.
started.
I love this idea that this whole journey into XR, 3D VFX, spatial creating starts from a very specific pain point. The tools today might mean that you would have never encountered that pain point and your trajectory could be completely different. You have worked with some pretty amazing, desirable brands on some groundbreaking projects. Can you fill out this role as a spatial creator by maybe talking
Mhm.
about some of the cool brands and projects that you've been able to put out there?
When the AR world, like the brands really seemed to be getting interested in it. And my like day jobs and background was in marketing. So I really felt equipped once there was this huge demand for filters. And there are already a lot of creators doing it and working with brands in their different like lanes. Like I had my lane of different styles. I was able to carve out a space. And I think a lot of creators were in that era able to carve out a space where even if a really huge brand wanted to execute something, they were coming to us. It was literally me in my home office, just like just me. And that was so magical, I think, not just because it is self-serving to me, but I think as a whole, it was very magical because it was so real. It was like we're figuring things out as we go. Even if there were big brands coming to me and saying, "Can we do this in AR?" I'm like, "I'll try." Some of the things that ended up being for major brands was literally just me saying, "I'll see if I can figure it out. This is what I can tell you is probably possible, but let me send you something back and see if you like how it looks, and we'll go from there." And I know that my peers at the time were doing that too, and I think that's just so cool because it was literally just coming from exploration and trying to see what can we do. And it was a fun mix of having the brand identity mixed in with things that we were making. One of my favorite ones was for Doc Martens. They came and said, we want to do a digital shoe. Can we customize one of our shoes? And I'm like, this is like the craziest honor ever. It was so exciting because it's, yeah, let's just see what we can do with target tracking and how can we make this into exactly what I had been wanting to do. So it felt very cool because I remember back years ago, people would ask, "What do you want to do?" And I'm like, I just feel like it doesn't exist yet. Like I want to do this kind of digital layer, like sci-fi, and I just feel like it's not the time yet, which maybe is like weirdly psychic because it ended up being true. But working with brands is very exciting. It was very challenging, just a lot of hours, a lot of work.
You called out two things that I'm incredibly geeky around. The first is how this groundswell of a number of different trends within the greater world really seemed to come together for spatial creators, right? There was like the growth of what was then influencer, it's now creator, as a role. Social media stars were starting to pop up, and that idea that brands would look to creators as a way to engage specific audiences, to have relevancy, to understand and display that they were cool with trends was becoming a thing. The AR creation tools were not to the level where brands were taking them in-house. They still needed translators. There was curiosity within creators about how to do things with more depth and dimension. Digital creators were starting to want more time, space, or even just like interactive capabilities. And I think all of those things all together at once was a very cool moment for creators to step in. And this is the second, right? And become that translator of a new technology to consumers and
Yeah.
to the biggest brands. Hey, Doc Martens, here's what consumers want. Here's what the technology does. You're welcome. Such a cool spot
Yeah.
to be in.
I think one of the coolest parts in that moment was everybody I was talking to and getting to know in those spaces we're looking at. We just happened upon bringing our art, whether it's painting, whether it's being a DJ, whether it's dance, violin, like we want to, like those people had found a way to translate that into the XR, and we were all like really wanting to bring more people into that. The conversations were always like, anybody, no matter what you're doing, we're trying to create this digital layer that's more accessible, can be more easily shared. You can do things at a distance and bring the art into it. It's almost like what would you do before FaceTime to really be able to talk to somebody? We were feeling that same way of the art, the immersive experiences. And it wasn't like, oh, let's keep people out because we've discovered this thing. It was very much, you are a graffiti artist. Please put your work into XR. Please, if anything, literally, like if you're a classical painter, if you're anything, singer, it was just so exciting. It's interesting to see those trends and what happens, because when things happen on social media, it has a moment and then the masses move on to something else. But I think there's still so much to be explored in the XR space. And that's why I'm still excited about it. I feel like it's just a matter of time before that can reemerge in another way. And I think it has to.
I like that perspective that trends will trend, right? We know a hype cycle will cycle. In some regards, I've started to think of XR or 3D as just a channel. It is one of the tools that I have in my kit as a marketer, as a storyteller. As a creator, you've gone through these cycles where creation tools were super stoked to bring in creators, to teach them, to see what they would make with the tools. Now, a good number of those early big creator tools don't exist anymore, or those projects are not able to be updated. As an early adopter, you're looked to translate and build. How does it feel when the trends or even the underlying technologies say thanks, learn something, and then move on? How do you keep that excitement you're faced with those kinds of changes?
Yeah. Try to be very of two minds about it. And that's the approach that I also had to those projects when the tools were active. I have my creative side where I'm like, I want to push it very far. I want to do something very out there, but I also understand on the corporate level what their goal is and what their brand goal is. And I think that's the only thing sparing me from feeling devastated, because as an artist, I'm like, I want to use these tools. This is beautiful. This is wonderful. We had so much momentum in certain tools and in certain communities. On the business end, I'm like, okay, I guess it's a little colder. If something works or adds up, it's going to be moved on to, it's going to be changed. And I think what keeps me excited is like viewing it. Okay, I have this part of me that's also just going to view it kind of, if a tool is not available, fine, I'll find another tool. Realizing that agency of not being so loyal to thinking something is going to last forever, because especially with social media trends, the platforms don't tend to last. Maybe like I think of YouTube and Reddit have been really long lasting of like maintaining that kind of popularity, but outside of that, things have shifted so much that I couldn't have expected the tools that I use the most to stay. So I've just moved on to try to use different tools. But that is compartmentalizing.
I worked in galleries for a decade, and the archival quality of the materials used was always of utmost concern. There are some materials that just are not archival. Video, until it was digital, was always a problem. Digital, augmented reality filters, mixed reality apps, even mixed reality headsets are pieces that have a life cycle.
Mhm.
And it's almost like this time-based interactive work. Part of its time-based quality is that like this technology, this code base is only going to be here for a moment. And at the moment, we don't have a wayback machine for all kinds of code.
Yeah.
And that we might have been building, this is me getting a little esoteric in the art space, right? But augmented reality may not have just been augmented realities, but it may have been way more time based than we had expected it to be.
Yeah, and I think that idea influenced how I was creating, even when it wasn't really the right way to do it. And as it got farther into creating projects, I'm like, you know what? The easiest way to get the most people to see this is just making a video. Like, I can make the effect, but then just recording the video, I have it. It's an asset, it's in a folder, it's organized the way that I would for a company in marketing. I was approaching it like that. And sometimes I would tell a client or a brand, I think it would be better if we just made this into a video. Then people can interact with it in the way that we were really interacting. Now I'm glad because those things are archived and they're there. Even though I can't open the project of a lot of things, I still have a lot of videos of them. I was trying to do that for brands too because it's where is this going? How is this evolving? And it also sucks because the immersive part is the part, but I felt like to get that adoption, people need to see it and ask what it is. I found like back in 2021, if I posted something AR, people would say, "What is this? Is this real? Is this not? What is this?" People are just trying to understand what it is. Now, everybody is, no, this is augmented reality. Like I went from being comment warrior in my comment section saying, this is augmented reality. What that is a digital layer on top of this, like hundreds of times. And now people in the comments do that. Everybody knows. So I feel like it is like moving in the direction of adoption. But I felt like at the time of trying to deliver effects, especially for the kind of brands I was working with, I'm like, as an XR lover, I want to say, make the filter, use the QR code, make everyone update their app and scan it and do it. But as a marketing person, if you want 100,000 people to see this, this is the only way that's going to happen. So it's just trying to play with all those exact things. How is this going to add the longevity? How can we make something that will be seen and used? Whether we are passionate about this version or that version, because it all still feels new, even though XR has been around for decades in different forms. It still feels so new, and like there's so much farther to go with people engaging with it or getting on board or feeling like it's cool or just seeing it like we see it as people who love it.
I was not going to ask any questions about smart glasses, but I feel
Ah,
like this idea of maybe consumers, the audience of digital artworks, immersive artworks, are just more familiar, more aware of what things are. So the wow factor isn't as big and it's more internalized. But I would say that in spatial computing space, there's dozens and dozens, almost hundreds of different kinds of smart glasses with AI assistants, with cameras, with remote sensors. How do you, as a spatial creator, think about smart glasses and their role both in spatial creators and your own work?
I think I'm always excited about it, but it always feels like it's not quite able to the exciting part yet, which is not a fault from anybody developing it because it takes so much to make something small to make the interface like science fiction. And I think we've all been waiting on that for so long. I'm not the one coding it. I'm not the one engineering it. So I can't say I wish they were more advanced now because they're already so advanced compared to even just a few years ago. I think I prefer the idea of a head mounted device to the phone. If we are going to be so integrated with the tech, I'd rather be looking through my own eyes. I do think it's detrimental in so many ways. The way that mass adoption will come is thinking towards the way of navigation, like which we see some of those concepts now of like you're walking down the street and you can see a restaurant's rating, things that are not too invasive, but it is giving you the information that you actually want through the head-mounted device. I hope that would be a shift from the mobile tech to the head-mounted tech. It's interesting to see that landscape now because I think there was a lot of excitement around that, but now I think people are just viewing tech as a whole differently. They feel the landscape has changed, don't you think?
So that brings me to one of my next business questions. I mentioned at the top that I see spatial creators as this keystone to the whole industry that are translating what is possible up and down the chain. So I'm curious, What's a trend or maybe a theme, something you're advising your clients about for 2026?
I think it all has to do with the influencer and the brand economy. The consumer is becoming way more educated than they've ever been. And I would credit TikTok discourse to that, which I know people like there's negatives about that. But I think now, for example, if an influencer comes out with an influencer brand, the reaction is usually pretty negative. Unless it's really something that people have researched, you can tell it's something that they would use. I think people with the state of the world are so over it when it's somebody who's already very wealthy is saying, here's my thing that you should spend your money on. So I think that all affects the XR landscape a lot because people are hurt with the bubble of over luxurious, like over aspirational. And now I see a huge shift just in visual trends to the artisans, the people making things with our hands. What I've been interested in is bringing those very physical media into the XR, which I was to a degree before when I would hand draw things, but it was still largely digital, just like drawing on an iPad or animating something in 2D and then bringing it into XR. But now I've really tried to push to physically make something and then capture the essence of that in XR. And it comes out as less futuristic, I think, but that felt right to me, trend wise.
Yeah, immediately I was like, oh my gosh, every sign and poster is using psychedelic serifs so that they look like posters or screen prints. And this idea of bringing, this actually is one of my like big curiosities with you because in your work, love to play with this line between practical effects and digital effects, like hand drawn moments and some of the most transparent, mind boggling virtual effects. You described having to hand draw within Adobe. So you've always had this hands on approach to digital. Can you talk about how you balance and approach this duality of extreme hi fi and extreme lo fi all in the same?
I always like art or fashion or any type of piece of media that can exist outside of time or you can't quite place the time. Like I love things playing with the timelines, using the fabric of time as part of the medium. That's always interested me. I'm a big Star Trek lover, and it's just the concept of sometimes things in Star Trek felt like this could be so far in the past in a society we never experienced, or so far in the future. And that just feels right to me. And I think it's interesting because as much as I try to do that, and I look back at something I made, and sometimes I feel like, wow, this actually does feel like it's transcending the time a little bit. But then sometimes it's very 2016. I think that in itself is so interesting to me. Those kind of successes and failures in trying to bend the old and the new together. I've always been very into that. And maybe that just comes from I've always loved antiquing. Like I've been a like serial antiquer since childhood. I'd visit my grandma and we're going antiquing and look for little jewelry. The things that I still wear are thrifted antique. I've always loved that. The idea of, okay, I'm taking this like 1920s item and I'm wearing it to high school now. And who would have thought? I think it's a very nerdy concept, but I love the idea of existing in a different realm that's not on our linear time.
Where do your best ideas come from?
I do love connecting with nature. I think that's really important for me. And I think we've lost a connection with the wisdom of nature in different areas. I think as humans and as the industry has done and as our capitalism has done, it's separated out. If you're art, you can't also be art and function and machinery. But I think when you look at nature, it's like the grasshopper is machinery, like the physics of the legs of the grasshopper, but it's exquisite art at the same time. And I hate that we've lost that. And I take a lot of inspiration from seeing the functional things in nature that I think in modern Western science we'd look at and say, oh, it's just that way because of this or that. But there is this very wise artistic reality to it. And so I always want to connect with that. I think that helps my mind space.
I would put 90% of the spatial creators I know are probably going to give me a very similar answer like this. It's a very cool connection between I'm so present here in my environment that I can see what additional layers would make this more interesting or more
Yeah.
thematic. I don't think you can like find the right augment if you're mixing realities if you don't have a very clear understanding of the base canvas that you're working on?
I think that goes back to brands too, because I've really tried to like doing consulting for brands like how can we enter this space? We see your video or we see this brand's video, we want a video that's going to do the same thing. I really think I would always open that conversation with it has to be grounded in the physical things that people are really interested in. It has to be substantial because we're already fighting against people viewing something and just I think like the metaverse concept, as many interesting parts came out of that, really the public perception of that was rough. People made jokes about it, which at the time I'm like, this isn't fair. Like you at the time, these teams are working so hard on these things. And people don't understand it's not possible to have somebody with legs. It's so hard to develop these things. And if people dived a little bit deeper, they realized how groundbreaking some of the things that they were making fun of were. I had to overcome that with the reaction to my own videos because people would be saying, this looks like 90s 3D. This is so outdated. Instead of having my feelings hurt by that, I'm like, it's a 4 megabyte limit. And this is in real time. But I think in working with brands as that kind of translator, and I'm sure every creator can relate to this, we're having to explain to the brand this is really new, even if it does have a limit versus just going in and VFXing something. To do it in real time, to have it tracked like this, it's just going to give a different kind of effect. The branding and the tech industry are just so connected.
Amazing. With the advancement of tools, with the ebbs and flows of trends and focus and attention, how are you feeling today about being a spatial creator?
I'm still excited about it because it's back to that same essence of trying to bring something into a new space. I still feel like there's so much that's unexplored there. There's a lot of viewers who will see something and say, oh, I remember seeing this a few years ago when these trends were happening, but there's so much that's undone. I look back at some of the things that I've made years ago and I'm like, wow, like I would know how to make this so much better than it was then. Back then, it was being viewed as, "What's this?" Now we can really make it better than that, but I think people will see that, and it's able to adjust itself around these desires of the consumer and desires of brands, especially with pop-up locations and being able to host events and have things in person. I do think the tide is turning to people wanting more face-to-face experiences, but I feel a lot of big city living is not accessible for a lot of people. And I've seen people like streaming fashion shows where you can virtually be there and experience something the day it's happening. And it's not going to be exactly the same, but to have the feeling of being able to go to this place and experience this kind of elite art thing from wherever I am is an incredible possibility, an incredible market. And I'm excited about those things. And I'm interested when more brands realize that, where there is a lot of excitement there.
I caught myself yesterday on a TikTok live watching breakdancing from Japan. And right on this topic of what are the tech trends that are actually moving some of these interactive experiences forward, one of my favorite parts about the live stream was you could tell that there was an in world option for watching the breakdancing live stream because there were people in VR chat and characters who occasionally you would pan to watching over their shoulders, like I do
Whoa.
in Horizons for watching basketball. But they
Yeah.
were Red Bull isn't just on live streaming. They also have their own TV channel. They have live streams on video channels. And they've got UGC game worlds or VR chat worlds where people can go and have this embodied relationship. If you break down augmented reality into the idea of a smart camera, the role that live streaming on TikTok and Twitch have
Mhm.
had in bringing AR filters into everyone's living rooms or everyone's experience of online communication. Like the filter makers back in 18 would die to have that kind of coverage, that kind of exposure of their tools. But it's also it's an emoji. It's like part of communication, not even standalone.
Now that you say that, thinking of this streaming world, there's just so many possibilities for real time because that is so real time versus just the infinite scroll kind of short form content. I do think like it's definitely switched to this streaming. I would almost say like streaming dominant culture. The most popular influencers really are starting to become streamers. And what better way to do things in real time and have the 3D world mixed in with that? Exactly. Yeah. I would love a world where we can put on our glasses, ideally are lightweight glasses, and you can literally just place the streamers 3D, like when they're doing their IRL streaming, you can literally place the convention they're at or the event they're at in 3D in your space, and you can watch it in 3D. That's my dream. I feel like we're getting closer to that, as like all consuming as that kind of thing is. Like, I wish people understood that like these clunkier stepping stones is because of that kind of vision of like the things that are genuinely so cool. Some of the trends ended before we could even get to that, which I hate. I'm like, can we get it along to this point so we can show people what we've been excited about?
One of the cool things for creators is there are so many tools. There are 3D tools, there's AI tools, so many things at your fingertips. As a content creator, somebody who's been known for being at the front of all of these things, how does this proliferation of tools impact your work, your focus, how you approach things? How do you advise up and coming creators as they're trying to find their path, pick one that works, is sustainable, or supports their vision?
I think it has to be true to your own creative process and what you're getting out of it. Me just creating in general, no matter the medium, is really to take something on the inside and get it out, transmute it into something. That's the process that I love. And that's how I'm approaching art. And I think it's so magical that other people can be approaching art for a completely different purpose to get something else out of it completely. And that's where I'm like, any of the tools that are available, all I can do is just use the ones that feel right to me, where I'm like, okay, this is my process, this is my concept, and this is how I want to translate it to partake in this creative process and then have a result to share with people. And I think that exact same sentiment will come up with so many different results, like completely individual results and tools, depending on who's approaching the concept. It's very interesting to me to talk to other people and see the work of other people that use totally different tools. I think it's just all for the love of the art of approaching something, saying, okay, I like this, I don't like this, I want to use this, I don't want to use this. This feels like it's helping my creative process. This feels like it's taking something away from it. Everyone's result with all of our parts of our character and biases creates the magical different results. Anybody's voice in XR is going to create something unique. I don't think anybody would be able to step in and recreate what someone else is doing because it's based on all of those things of where we came from. And this is like so cool about this world of AR is so many people had other types of art before stepping into XR. And I do wonder if that'll change if people just start on going, I want to be an XR creator first and don't do anything else outside of that in a different practice. But I think that's usually not the case. Like, I think like everybody who I know in the industry does something else in a different creative way. So I think it'll continue to be like this amazing mixture.
I like the idea that XR creators aren't committed to a single tool or outcome, but are the ones who are hungry for more layers, who want more layers to work with. We've been dancing around this a little bit, but let's get straight to it. As an artist, as a creator, you've been pretty outspoken about your feelings about how, especially large language models, but like AI in general, can be a tool or not for creators. Can we start to open up that can of worms?
I think for me, it's part of the holistic artist, just like think about an artist existing in the world. And I feel like I have to represent my real opinions. It's one of those things that is bittersweet because I love the idea of the tech. Like, I really love it. Literally 10 years ago, I wrote science fiction about an AR brain implant. Literally, the AR brain implant, an AI powered, taking our thoughts and fully generating them into AI to someone else's device and into someone else's brain. That was my whole excitement. I was so excited about it. But now when I see that moving towards that in reality, I'm like, okay, who is in charge of this? Do I like their philosophy? And a lot of times the answer is no. And I see the real impact on the world. I think, especially for creators, it becomes very imperative that we look at the practical implications of things we support or don't support. I don't like when creators will dance around like, maybe this is who I voted for. Personally, I would rather, and I think that's just my platform too, is to just really say what I want to say. And I value that so much. That does translate over. So it's bittersweet because in a vacuum, I would love to generate my ideas. I would love to. But because I think it would create a very cool result to be able to go full generated video for some concepts that I would have to hop into Blender and do. I don't have anything against that, but it's like in the greater context of the world, and it's like we're at this fork in the road of are we gonna go this way, which is like big tech giants, super corporate at the expense of marginalized groups, or are we gonna go this way where we're really getting onto hands-on crafting? We're saying no, as an individual artist, I want to establish some rights first. I think for me it was easy which path to choose, even when that went against my concept. So I think it's interesting because it's all part of that, just like trying to translate what's going on inside to the outside. And I feel like I have to share my being because it's coming from a genuine place. And that's not to say that I think, oh, if I don't use this, that means I'm a better artist and that means I'm better at being true to myself than if I was using tools that I'm not really feeling or not really feeling the company or what direction is going, what they're standing for, what I'm paying a subscription fee to. And I have so much respect for artists who come to a totally different conclusion. That's part of the beauty of making our own things. Equally interested in somebody who says, I had this concept and the way that I want to get to it is add something to my concept. I'm genuinely interested in that as much as I would be of the classical painter. I think it's less about this is real art and more about the social issues, for me at least.
It artist who also has lived as a marketer like really shines through for me, right? Because it is so clear how focused you are on two things: who is my audience and what is my intent. For something that speaks for me and to my own soul, I want to be clear about that and where that comes from. If there were a task or a project I was working on that had some value in this direction, we find the right tool or approach for that. Thank you for that. What's the thing that excites you most about XR or mixed reality or being a spatial creator?
I think it's the lack of restraints because in physics it just doesn't exist. And that opens up so many design possibilities that were not on the horizon. Thinking back to my best known 8-hour rings, it was so simple to have the diamonds floating. That opened up a whole new possibility of designing a ring that can bring motion into it. Things had to be solid and physically grounded and following, like, beholden to gravity, and we can just detach all of that. And I think that in so many abstract ways, you can detach things from reality, the physical reality. And there's so many ways to explore that that I would never be able to do or never be able to conceptualize. That when the right person steps into the space, they're going to open something up that's so incredible that nobody's ever thought of. And I think that becomes true of so many creators. And it's just so exciting to see.
What's the thing that excites you the most about Geese these days?
Yeah, I've had a social media presence about the lovely Canada Goose. And I'm the product of the trends too. I think when things became so fast paced, so generated, like everything was going so quickly in that development, I think just the contrarian in my brain is let's go like earth and dirt and grass and dust. I think just like something philosophically in me wanted to just go the opposite and explore that instead. I spent a lot of time outside and I spent a lot of time around animals and I found the connection with the Canada goose and just it became so interesting to interact with this earth creature that is not engaging with any of this technology. And it's so interesting to see like this is a creature that's developed for millions of years in a way that is so wise. They're self-sustaining. It's so different than just a domesticated animal. They have this wild wisdom, and I feel like there's so much to learn from that. They have what they need to exist in our modern life outside of maybe a hospital or medical care, but they're so self-sustained without all these products and tools and developments. I think it's really interesting for me to challenge myself with that because I've been for so many years full speed ahead. I'm gonna learn the software, I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna put something out just blindly. Now I'm looking at it like, okay, the wise goose doesn't need this. It allows me to see the real value in some of the things I'm creating and where that real value might be. What can the goose appreciate in the ways that the goose is wiser than me?
The idea that a goose utopia could be a counterpoint to our tech obsession and like a way that we find like fulfillment and enough is was not a topic I was expecting from this call. but I am here for it. We're getting close to time. I always like to look forward and ask
Mhm.
about big dreams, so hoping you'll join me on this. In 5 years, where do you see your work, the spatial creator community, the ideas of mixed reality? Where do you think we'll be in 5 years?
For my own work, I'm gonna try to bring the physical elements in more and follow that lead. It's a moment where everyone is split between different platforms and different things, as we always really have been. Everyone has such different skills and backgrounds. It's so nice to be able to come together, and there's areas of the industry that I think we end up insulated from, where I'll realize, whoa, somebody is doing something so incredible that I should have been seeing like 5 years ago, and you just don't end up seeing it. I hope that as we're all online and creating more, we'll all connect together more and be able to share those resources and ideas. And that'll help us be visible to brands and the audience and the consumer too.
Do you have a favorite place for connecting with other creators?
I think it's a mixture of places. I've been to a few art events where I can meet people and realize, whoa, we know the same person in this industry. I recently met somebody who knew someone else in the industry for 30 years. And I think in person is great, but that's excluding a vast majority of people. Normally on our social media channels, I end up connecting with people if I see their page or somebody tags someone, and then I can go to their page and say, whoa, they've been making this stuff for so long. So I do think it would be nice to have a more cohesive place for that. If you know of any, I'll get on.
I've had an opinion about this for a while, but I'm not going to
Ooh.
drop anything at the moment. Even just mentioning how there can be silos within different specialties or focus areas. I know so many digital artists, and I don't know that any of the digital artists that I know are necessarily talking with the artists who do digital that I know, right?
Yeah.
G video artists doing projection mapping and reality
Yeah.
mixing, but from a totally different perspective than folks building AR filters or doing immersive scenes and spaces. How do you connect those different ends of the same spectrum so that there can be more interplay, more cross pollination? It's a very juicy question.
Totally. Even within one platform, it's like people who would make face filters and people who would make gaming filters are like on different ends of the universe. So I think that shows there's so many opportunities in different industries. XR applies to every industry. I've been in fashion, and I'll come across somebody like on LinkedIn or something that's like XR and mechanical engineering, and I'm like, whoa, there's a whole world that I haven't been part of. I think that's a good sign that we're applicable everywhere.
I love it. Piper, I want to make sure that I don't keep you too long. Is there any last takeaway, or if we were supposed to walk away with one thing from this conversation, what would you say it should be?
I think looking outside of the quick viral trends and what has come out of those in XR, there's so much value there. I wish people would explore themselves. If people are saying, I don't like this, I don't like that, I wish those people would step into the space and make their thing, because it probably really is exposing an open space and a real need. And I think it's just the possibilities are so endless, regardless of what the trends are. Because the next people to make those trends maybe haven't even started creating.
The people who are going to make the next trends maybe haven't even started yet, I think is a fantastic place to wrap this up, Piper. This has been such a treat. Thank you for sharing your creative process, your artwork, your vision, and your advice to corporates.